I'd like to thank you all, and just out of support for you, I'd like to give yourselves a round of applause. So the first person I'd like to introduce to do our welcome is our Chair Emeritus, Kevin Clouden. He's a senior executive with Milken Institute, one of my biggest supporters. And when I asked him to join our board, he immediately stepped forward and did 2 years of service. So Kevin, I'm going to give you the mic, and if you could go ahead and step in and welcome.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It's great to have a chance to be the Kevin duo one more time, and to welcome you to this. Is that the BizFed Institute, as you know, is very much focused not on just identifying problems, but looking at solutions. And we're glad to be here because this is a great combination both of discussions of how to solve issues and pragmatic hands-on solving those issues and having the career fair and the direct engagement involved. For my pleasure serving as BizFed Institute Chair and having been on the board for several years is that I have gotten to see firsthand exactly how we've been able to take a number of key issues and turn them into actionable items, not just discussions of, oh, we have a persistent problem. I will say that there's a certain amount of nostalgia being here. A long time ago, I was a professor at Santa Monica College, and my first class I ever taught was a night class with nothing but returning students, so very much an extension class, if you will. So I was in a room like this, and I taught the class, and I was the youngest person in the room. So I very much a believer right now that we need skilled workforce. We need to bridge the gap between people's reasonable ambitions, reasonable goals, and actually having the tools to achieve them, not just for them, but for businesses and for everybody in the community. In the wake of the fires, in the wake of government layoffs that we are in the midst of right now, the need for this is even stronger than ever, and I'm very glad that all of you are here. We have a great program today, and we're looking forward to having you involved.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, I would like to bring up our gracious host. Those of you that know me know that I'm a UCLA alum. No offense, SC. And Dr. Eric Bullard, the Dean of UCLA Extension, was so gracious to allow us to use this facility. And so we want to thank you for that. We want him to come up and give you a quick welcome, if you would.
All right. Well, it's my pleasure and honor to welcome you to UCLA. Even if you're a Trojan, thank you for coming across town. We won't hold that against you. I think that, this is the work that we live and breathe every day here in the Division of Continuing Education, or what you know as UCLA Extension. We work with companies, we work with nonprofit agencies, governmental agencies, to ensure that we're training the future workforce here in Los Angeles and across the globe. So this is one of our primary facilities that's owned by UCLA. On any given day, you'd see hundreds of students coming in and out learning, so welcome. I will be brief. I'm also supposed to introduce a sponsor video that I believe Blaine is queuing up now. So Blaine, I'll turn it over to you.
My man Eric, thank you. I'm gonna go back.
first of all, for being here. I want to set the table real quick and before we do our flash poll. Again, my name is Kevin Harbour. I'm the president of BizFed Institute. I've been in this position about 5.5 years now. And, to those of you that are here, I really want to give you a pat on the back because you're visionaries. In today's world, it's no longer a brick and mortar type business model. If you're not leveraging digital assets, if you are not investing in your workforce, we're on a world stage now. I mean, we truly are. With emerging technologies like AI and various other technologies to create efficiencies and to allow us to be more efficient, you're getting behind the curve. So the whole idea of bringing business leaders together is to help you hear from your peers in terms of their success stories. And those success stories involved investing in their workforce. So if you have a smart workforce, you're delivering better products and services. I spent 30 years in IT, and I had to reinvent myself just in that space about 3 times because technology evolves. And so with the new technology that's evolving with the new ways of doing business in terms of maintaining best-in-class performance, you have to invest in your workforce. You got to upskill them. And with a better workforce, you have better products and services, right? Which means that you're more competitive. If you're more competitive, you drive more revenue. If you're driving more revenue, then you can afford to invest in your workforce, not only in terms of their education, right? Because we have people from universities, community colleges, and businesses that invest in their workforce, but also just in terms of making sure that you could continually grow and capture more market share. When you do that and you have predictable run rate revenue, you can effectively plan strategically. If you can do that, now we're talking about a 10 to 20 year impact. Following this, we're going to have a career fair. I'm real proud of this part because once you hear the success stories, those of you that are decision makers, and we got a lot of HR people in here, is who we want. We also have decision makers, C-level execs. Once you see your peers and your colleagues invest successfully, if there's any trepidation, any concern, that goes away. And once you have confidence and know that this investment is going to work, then you have the confidence of moving forward. So I just want to thank you again for attending, because in our career fair that follows this, we reach capacity in terms of the companies that have come here today, that are setting up today to hire people.
A month ago, Kevin.
A month ago. That's Blaine. I call him Blaine, the Wizard of Oz. He's the man behind the curtains, setting up all this stuff, cameras, and all that good stuff. So at the end of the day, there's over 100 people coming today looking for that thriving career. And we can do all this planning and we can get technical, and at the end of the day, we have a qualitative measurement, and that's you being here, and then a quantitative measurement. How many people can we get hired? So while we're building new businesses and buildings and all that other stuff, we're gonna get thousands of people hired in the meantime. And you guys you folks are the point of the spear to do that. So I want to thank you. So next, I like to dive into the results of the flash poll conducted by the employers group. There's a gentleman here. I don't see him. He's in here somewhere. But where's okay, Bill? Come on up. Yeah, and then Mark Wilbur, who is one of the original board members of BizFed Institute and BizFed. Raise your hand, Mark. Mark's an SC guy. He was former dean of Marshall School of Business, But we dragged him down here to UCLA, and he's been a strong supporter of mine since day one, and I appreciate that. But right now, we're going to talk about Bill Stevens, who's going to run through this presentation. The way we do the poll is that we establish it, and all of you and other stakeholders and subject matter experts get a chance to lean in on their view of workforce development and what it means and how it should be shaped and the successes and the challenges. Okay, and so he's going to talk to you about that. And at the end of the day, you know, the whole idea is to have you as partners identify the complex and organizational and best employment practices necessary to maintain and grow your success. So Bill, the stage is yours.
Thanks so much, Kevin. And actually, a lot of what Kevin was talking about at the beginning really, really does play into what we're going to look at right now as we review the results of the flash poll, because we see the importance of technology and the advances and the evolution of the workforce, but we also see something really interesting that's going to jump out to us. That I think you'll find really interesting, which is there's a lot of the old school issues that still come up. There's a lot of importance still placed in terms of developing our workforce and identifying our candidates, bringing people in and making them successful and making our businesses successful. A lot that comes into kind of the old traditional values and importance. So Blaine, on the next slide. So a big thank you to all those that did participate. We had 41 that participated. This is the second time we've done this poll, and I'll reference a couple of things from the previous time. The last time was November of 2023, so we've seen a little bit of change, but we've seen a lot of things staying the same too in some of the questions that are similar between the two polls. But a big thank you to those that did participate in it, wide range of industries, so we get a really good cross-section of professionals and businesses represented. On the next poll, when we look at overall what we found, on the next slide, just to summarize what we found overall, a couple of things really jumped out. First of all, batteries are perfect. Talk faster. You want to go back one slide?
You keep going. Yeah. Oh, back.
Yeah,
Sorry.
back one. Thanks. Just to really quickly to summarize, it's focusing on the interpersonal components of workforce development will be really, really beneficial. This is something you'll see this kind of weave throughout the responses to the poll. Curriculum came up in a couple of cases. Could be more aligned with business needs. That word "could" we debated back and forth. Could, should. It's definitely not must be, but could be is what we settled on. And you'll see this, it's nuanced, but some consideration in terms of curriculum. Money may be more of a factor now than it was before when we did this. You'll see that come up a little bit. Finding the right people is still a challenge. Some things never change. Finding the right people, really, really important. And then kind of to address the elephant in the room, and I think because we launched this poll the last week of January, so there were still fires going on in the area. We knew that was something that was going to impact the workplace and our workforces. So we did include a question of that, and we did find that definitely is going to have some long-term impact on our workforces. On the next slide, in fact, just to take a quick look at the impact of the fires, we'll see that. I'll move to the next slide. Thanks. We asked, has your business been impacted by the recent fires? And yeah, we found that just about everybody, and this was really, really shocking to see that only 36%, the second line said no, we are not directly impacted. So just about everybody, over about 2/3, were impacted one way or another by the fires. And what's particularly interesting in this is even if we look at the lower levels here where we had less of a response, that's significant. When we see 16% expect the fires will have future implications in terms of their insurance premiums, same number that it could have long-term impact on their business models. So with everything we deal with naturally evolving in the workplace, now for those of us in the Los Angeles region, we have to throw in this additional factor that we expect to have some long-term implications. The first question we asked, all right, so skills and leadership development stand out as top priorities. Question for those of you who did take the poll, you'll remember this. Does your organization currently have in place or would like to have in place the following? And we gave you a list of things and asked you to say you have it now, you would like to have it, or you do not need it. And what I really look at here in the results is the not needed, because this tells us what is needed when we look at what's not needed. And it's interesting that almost everybody needs skills training, right? And I think that that'll be a big theme as we go throughout the day and into the afternoon part of the program as well. And then leadership development training too. So this is where we start to see the communications, the interpersonal skills becoming so important. And it's one of, actually, interestingly, one of the few times that we really see that part really being about developing our employees and really working with them, which is obviously part of the goal of leadership development training. This is very similar to what we saw. I'm going to go ahead. Very similar to what we saw when we asked this question last time. But one thing that I did find interesting, and this obviously for employers has been a big issue in the past, and we'll see where it goes now, particularly in our area here. But diversity, equity, and inclusion. Remember, we launched this at the end of December. I think the poll was probably open when the new executive orders came out about this and the impact that had. But notice that 71% say they already have a diversity, equity, and inclusion program in place. And only 14%, even at this point, are saying that they don't need it. Again, most of this is in line with what we found when we asked this question before. On the next slide, we'll take a look at, for those who don't have it in place but would like to have it, what is it that's stopping them? And for those of you that will be participating in the career fair, this I think will give you a lot of ideas in terms of what candidates might be looking for, what some of the things that are going to be important for us. But it's kind of all over the place. So we see skills that in some cases funding. You need assistance to find ways to apply for grants and to get funding for it in some cases. And then the other one that jumps out a lot is partnership with organizations. So this is where a lot of people in this room could really come into play in terms of what some of the businesses are looking for. And then also notice that 100% on diversity, equity, and inclusion, just need to have a better understanding of it. Nobody's looking for more money for it. Nobody's looking for time for it. They just need to understand it a little better, which might make sense at this point. On the next slide, this was, to me, kind of the key question here, which is what are the biggest challenges that you're facing in developing your workforce? We gave you 7 choices, and we asked you to rank them from 1 to 7. And this really jumps out, right? It's pretty easy to see what we're finding. Finding qualified candidates and access to funding. So this is where we start to see the money issue becoming a little bit more important. But these dominated. More than twice as many selected those 2 as the top choice versus the others. And then this is very similar to what we found when we asked this same question before. In 2023, when we asked this question, it was finding qualified candidates that was number 1. Here's something also that stands out, and I realized this morning as I was looking through this again. Notice number 7, only 8% said providing continuous training and skill development for our workforce. And same number said identifying employees who are motivated to elevate their skills. 2023, this was also similar. Yet we're looking now at also hiring new people, recruiting, the efforts to bring new people in, but are we really spending enough time developing the talent that we have? Are we putting enough emphasis on that? Something that kind of jumped out as I looked through this again. And then on the next slide, the next question that we asked was, here we go. This is a new question. We didn't ask this in 2023, but I think it's really kind of sums everything up. What does the bridge between learning and industry look like? And this is kind of what, to me, created our central themes for the flash poll and hopefully set the stage for the rest of the day. But collaboration between academia and business. Collaboration, that's where we start to see that word come in, and we're going to see it a little bit more in just a second. And then access to funding again. So this is the collaborating and then the money part of it. But then also we still get a decent amount of building a diverse workforce is still really important to us. But then again, notice providing continuous training and skill development for our workforce does not jump out a whole lot. On the next slide, Okay, just about done. Great. Okay, we went through this. Next slide. Then we asked about curriculum. So is curriculum aligning with the business needs? And this is why we said it could be more aligned, because notice a slight majority said that no, it is not currently aligned. And then, but quite a few did feel yes. So kind of gives us the message that there's a subtle need to align curriculum a little bit more. On the final question that we asked, this is always my favorite, which is the open-ended question where we just kind of give you something and ask you to tell us your thoughts on it. What skills are currently in demand in your industry? And we broke them into two different categories because really that's what it comes down to, interpersonal. There are a lot of comments about interpersonal, critical thinking, communication, critical thinking, creativity, a lot of that. Think about that later in the day when you're talking to potential candidates at the career fair, for those of you that will be doing that this is really going to be what you're going to experience today is that interpersonal skills. Then you'll also get a resume, you'll see on a piece of paper what the technical and administrative skills might be. But what really jumped out was how many referenced the interpersonal skills as being critical. And even in the technical and administrative, what we classified as that, notice the ability to adapt to emerging technologies. So adapting, communicating from our side with our candidates and with our workforce, helping to develop their skills, making them more successful so our businesses are more successful. I think that's the real message that we got out of this flash poll. So thank you to all of you who participated in it, and thanks Kevin and Blaine for having us back here again today to talk about this.
Thanks, Bill. Now that's a polite crowd. I didn't even have to cue you to give him a hand. Thank you. All right, next, we're going to start our first panel. And I want to bring up our moderator. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Stephen Cheung. Those of you that have been around LA business, they know Stephen, but Stephen is the CEO and president of the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation and a subsidiary, the World Trade Center, Los Angeles. Big job. As CEO of the LAEDC, Mr. Cheung brings together the capabilities of LAEDC's mission-centered delivery departmental areas, including the Institute for Applied Economics, which is research, business assistant, industry cluster development, workforce development, World Trade Center Los Angeles, strategic relations, communications and marketing, and public policy, into a single team that delivers the LAEDC's critically important public benefit mission, reinventing our economy to collaboratively advance growth and prosperity for all. One thing I'd like to say personally, come on up, Stephen, is that we've been working together. LAEDC is the regional convener for California Jobs First, and we've been comrades in bringing forth workforce development along with several other key people, steering committee members in this room. So, Stephen, I'm going to have you introduce your panel members one by one and let them speak on themselves.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, BizFed Institute, for the invitation to moderate this panel. Excited. I see Blaine walking around. I'm already nervous because he's going to put the number up. I'm going to catch us up. I speak fast, so we're going to catch up on time. So, good morning. Again, Stephen Cheung here. So the first panel is really going to be focused on success stories and path to a skilled workforce and why this is so important to us. A little bit about LAEDC that Kevin was mentioning is that our hope is to be able to create a competitive economy, and our theory of change in terms of how do we do these, how do we create a competitive region so that we can have a thriving economy is that we want to have competitive industry clusters located throughout the Los Angeles region. So we're not dependent on one single industry. And our hope is to use our 5-pillar approach that Kevin was talking about earlier between research, business assistance, international trade, strategic relations as a way to drive industry cluster work, right? And in order for us to do so, we really need to start paying attention to some of the things that Bill was mentioning earlier as well. One of the things that we've been tracking very closely is that last year we had our economic forecast, which, by the way, next week we're going to have our economic forecast event, so hopefully you guys can join us. But last year we released some analysis. LA's population is expected to continue to decline. And we're expecting that in the next 5 years, our population will drop to about 9.5 million people, compared to before COVID at 10.2 million. No, not that big of a deal, right? That's 700,000 less people than what we had before COVID. To most US city, that's a major US city. We just lost the entire population there. So in order for us to be able to be competitive in the future, we have to make sure that our workforce are completely aligned with the future. And that's why the panel in front of you is going to be so important to talk about some of the pathways, some of the success stories. What do we need to do as a region in order for us to get there? So I'm excited to bring them up and have them introduce themselves. So Dr. Eric Bullard from UCLA Extension, please join us. Ms. Cynthia Mitchell-Hurd from LA Urban League, please join us. Welcome. Mr. Randall Martinez from Cordoba Corporation, please join us. And last but not least, Ms. Kim Fedrick from JVS SoCal, please join us as well. Excellent. We'll squeeze in, don't be shy. Tricky chair. Let's not fall off. Oh.
Now, if you'd like me to adjust them, I can adjust them for you.
Yeah. I was saying my back is not used to this. Oh. I'm spinning out of control here. Sorry. Let me spin myself back. Good morning, welcome. So, glad to have you guys all here. Why don't we have each one of you talk a little bit about yourself, maybe 2 minutes introduction, but also your organization and your company, a bit of background so the audience know what you're working on. So why don't we start with Eric? Why don't you start first?
All right, thank you. Again, my name is Eric Bullard. I serve as the Dean of the Division of Continuing Education here at UCLA. UCLA Extension, for those of you that are not aware, we actually predate the existence of the main campus. So we started in 1917 in downtown LA on 2nd and Hill Street. Today, we've grown into an organization that serves over 36,000 students a year through our programs that are students mostly from Los Angeles and Southern California, over 20,000 of them. And our programs span from everything from engineering and technology to entertainment studies, and we focus on making sure that we train the workforce of the future. So we work with businesses and industries across Los Angeles to ensure that we're really bridging that divide that you saw in the survey and making sure that we're providing the skills that are needed for the workforce. UCLA, one way in which we differ from the main campus is that everything that I just mentioned, we actually are not doing through degree programs. So everything offered through UCLA Extension is either a certificate or a specialization or a course. And so it differs a great deal from the main campus in that the main campus is focused on research, graduate education, and undergraduate education, which is also clearly important for our region in terms of the diverse economy. So with that, I think I'll stop so that we can continue.
Excellent. Cynthia, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Mitchell-Hurd, and I'm the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Urban League. I'm actually the first woman in over 103 years, so I'm very proud to say. Things are moving ahead, right? So the Los Angeles Urban League is historical. As I said, 103 years. Our goal is economic resilience, workforce development, advocacy, and education, not only for the marginalized communities, but for all communities, but especially for the African American community. We build partnerships, both private and public, working in workforce development, advocacy, entrepreneurship, and internships. And we service all of Los Angeles County. The historical aspect of it is we used to be very mobilized in the South Los Angeles area. As we have redeveloped and re-energized and remarketed who we are, we thought it was very important because we know that marginalized communities are all over Los Angeles County. And so not just a focal point of the South Los Angeles area. So we're very proud of the partnerships that we have. We serve over 100 workforce partnerships and training. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we move forward. But equity and looking at diversity is one of our clear areas of expertise.
Thank you, Cynthia. Randall.
Thank you. Dean Bullard, thank you very much for hosting us today. This is a fabulous facility. And Stephen, I admire the way you get your shoelaces to match your watch band. It's very impressive.
Color coordination. We learned that at UCLA.
Well done, well done. My name is Randall Martinez. I'm an executive with Cordoba Corporation. We are a privately held, family-owned civil engineering construction services company that specializes in the municipal market space. We have offices throughout California. We're based in Los Angeles. Something unique about me, I joined Cordoba Corporation in 1989. It's my first job out of college. And when I joined the company, I was employee number 5. And we have grown organically, the old-fashioned way, to about 600 employees now. And we've learned a few things along the way, and I look forward to sharing those ideas with you today.
So much.
Hello. So my name is Kim Fedrick, and I am the Chief Program Officer at JVS SoCal. I've been there for about 10 years, and during that time, I've had the opportunity to expand our Veteran Services program to include rapid rehousing, and also had the opportunity to expand our career training programs to include a new Earn and Learn program called Imaging Works that we offer in partnership with RadNet. JVS SoCal, let's see, we're just a little bit over 90 years old, and I thought we had a really long history and legacy, which we do. However, the Urban League really outdid us there a little bit. That's what I'm learning. So it makes me feel young. We're a young organization there. But anyway, we started, our history goes back to, we started with a single office serving Jewish refugees, helping them to transition to the American workplace and help them to navigate the American workplace. Today, fast forward, and we serve about 30,000 people we welcome to our different program offices. There are about 20 or so of them across LA County and even into San Bernardino, Orange County. We are serving people from all communities. So regardless of your background, race, religion, we are serving all of the populations. That includes immigrants and refugees from all over the world. That includes veterans, youth, the LGBTQ community, reentry, and more. And so our focus is building a job-ready workforce, and we do that with doing career guidance and mentoring, our employer partners, and also our career training programs. And I'd say we've been able to grow that impact with the support of our public and private partnerships.
Perfect. So now that we've set the stage in terms of who our panelists are and why their work matters to this entire economy as a whole, you see the range of folks here, right, representing the civic organizations that are so impactful, the education institutions and the talent development system to the corporation. So in your intro, you actually already took away some of the first talking points, but I actually want to emphasize a little bit and go into a bit deeper so the audience can get a better sense in terms of exactly what that pathway looks like. Because I think it'll be great for us to really get a clear understanding in terms of how do we start thinking through in order for us to build the competitive workforce of the future and make sure that this region continues to be competitive. What are some of the successes and programs which we'll get back to? I'm going to jump around a little bit. So Kim, why don't we go back to you first? As you're working, as you're talking about the services that JVS SoCal provides, can you give us a bit more context in terms of from your organization's perspective, when it comes to workforce development, where do you want to focus on? How do you create your programs, and where do you prioritize your resources?
So when it comes to workforce development, I kind of think of one of the areas that JVS focuses on is people who maybe just have a high school diploma. Maybe they're not interested in going to a 4-year institution, or maybe they have, but life and things have come up in the way, and they're starting and reimagining and re-envisioning their careers. So one of the areas that we work in is our career training programs. And one of the programs that I was talking about is our Imaging Works program. And that is, again, our first, we have several JVS Works career training program, but that program in particular is a learn and earn model. And the way that that came about, just kind of quickly, is that we are already doing a career training program that was preparing people to be patient service reps. That brought us into placing people at RadNet. That was one of the employer partners of many that we started to place people with. And so they got to know our program, they got to know the quality of the people who were being placed at their work site. And we had about maybe 40 people that were placed with them. So then we got to know their organization better, they got to know us better, and as they got to know JVS, then they came to us and said, hey, there's a need. We really need to have DEXA certified positions filled. So how can we do this together? And so then from that partnership, then it took us at least probably a year. This takes time to then work with them. What is it that they need? What kinds of skills are they looking for? What does a certification require? And bringing our team together with their team and really putting our heads together and partnering. And that's been successful. We had our first graduating class in December, and we had 36 graduates, and we had 28 people completed the program, and 23 of those were placed immediately into employment at their sites. So that's just one of the ways.
That's great. I'm going to skip over to Cynthia for a sec. Cynthia, Urban League is one of the most important civic organizations throughout Southern California, and under your leadership, as you're mentioning, the focus is not traditional in South LA anymore because LA's diversity is so expansive. Tell us a little bit more about the types of work. We know you have partnerships with Intuit and other folks. Tell us about those programs that are successful in terms of being able to reach the target audience that you're looking for.
We're so delighted to have this private-public partnership with Intuit. It was a partnership that we explored about a year and a half ago. And coming from the Los Angeles Urban League, we knew that it was important to continue conversations with corporations, and knowing that corporations needed to expand their base as well across being ethnically diverse. And so when coming to the Los Angeles Urban League, we designed a program that we knew for small businesses. Many small businesses of color don't have all the resources that they need. Some don't have back rooms. And what we mean by back rooms, the accounting. They don't have the clerical support. They do not have the ability to have certain mailers and all kinds of intricate backroom activities. So we partnered with Intuit, about a $500,000 initial investment that would look at 25 small businesses in Los Angeles by which we recruited. And that was very diverse by which we did that. We gave them business counseling. We gave them the full suite of Intuit's hardware and software, as well as giving them at the completion $25,000 to each small business. I am so proud to say that in 9 months, I repeat, 9 months, there was a 19% increase in revenue in this combined services. We now have expanded that to Atlanta and Philadelphia under the governance of the Los Angeles Urban League. So now we have 100 businesses. But it goes to show that when you give businesses, especially businesses of color, an opportunity to raise the bar and to have access, look what can happen. We had 100% graduation rate. And we are now 1.3 million in the 3 cities. And so I'm very proud of that one. I call that my baby.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that amazing program. As Cynthia was mentioning, I also want to thank LA Urban League for taking the initiative to really focus on the small business sector. A lot of folks don't know that in Los Angeles County, 94% of all our companies in Los Angeles County have less than 20 employees, 94%. And these 94% of companies employ about half of our entire workforce. So when it comes to workforce development, small business is a huge driver that sometimes people don't understand. And so the work that you're doing right now, in partnership with Intuit, is allowing these businesses to continue to expand and grow so they can hire more individuals. So that focus area is so important.
Thank you, and that is a program that's going to scale. We're moving into an additional 3 states in July.
Excellent, excellent. Speaking of partnerships, Eric, can I go back to what you're mentioning, the distinction between UCLA Extension and UCLA? Sometimes people don't know the difference, if you can go into a bit more detail that you mentioned already. But as you're moving forward in terms of the work that UCLA Extension is able to do, is the ability to work with organizations and change your curriculum and develop your curriculum in a way that's matching the needs. Can you go into a bit more detail so the audience understands how do we work more closely with UCLA Extension?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. You know, I've been in this position for just over 5 years, and again, storied history, over a 108-year-old institution doing great things for that 108 years. The one thing I think that we do really well, though, is that we have amazing faculty at our main campus, and in some cases, they teach in our programs. We're part of the academic senate, so we're considered a professional school at UCLA. But the one thing that really distinguishes us is that we hire people that are actually employed full-time in the professions for which we're training them to go into. And so it's really important that we partner with businesses, with industry, to make sure that the voice of business is there. Because we want to hear from you. We want to understand what it is that you need to be successful as either a business owner or somebody that oversees a governmental agency or a nonprofit. And so each of our programs, we have over 100 programs offered through UCLA Extension. Each program is required to have an advisory board. And on these advisory boards, we invite not only CEOs and community leaders, but HR directors and others to participate in the curriculum development process and to make sure that, again, that voice is heard. The instructors themselves, if you look at our portfolio, they're just these amazing individuals that have passion for the industries that they serve in. Most of them are not coming here because they want to become millionaires. They're not coming here because they want to earn necessarily even an extra paycheck. They're coming because they want to give back to Los Angeles. And so we're very proud of that fact that if you look across our programs, we have very high completion rates, and then we have these amazing mentors that our students learn from. So that's one major way in which we really differ from the main campus.
I also want to highlight the pathways and the option that UCLA Extension gives. On a very personal note, for some of you who know me, I'm a social worker by training. And before I went back to UCLA to get my degree in social work, I had to make sure that this is what I want. And that's what Kevin was mentioning in terms of upskilling, right? Understanding. But you don't know what that path truly is. So I actually took a UCLA Extension course on child psychology and child welfare in order for me to really commit myself to it. And that option of actually understanding the exploration, the future career option is going to be so important as we're moving forward, because right now the pathways are not quite clear. You know, good for the folks that's like, you know what, I'm going to be a doctor or going to be an engineer, that they know their path. But there are many of us who, you know, have to test things along the way.
Yeah, I would say you're absolutely right. And I think unlike in the past where individuals would spend 20, 30, 40 years in the same place and the same career, we don't see that today. And I think as a result, people really do look at institutions like ours or other, you know, community colleges or other institutions of higher education to help them upskill, retrain. It's so critically important. And I just think of a story of one of our recent alums. He had a really compelling story. He was a very successful attorney, a graduate from Berkeley, double grad from Berkeley, and so came to us during the pandemic he wanted to become a producer. And so he took our screenwriting and producing programs, and now he's actually pivoted his entire career, retired from being an attorney, and has actually screenplays and all sorts of things happening, Netflix shows, and it's just a way, just demonstrating that the programs that we have in a short period of time, people can come here, get retrained, and start a whole new career. And I think that's the modern way that people look at education, just-in-time education.
Randall, you were mentioning your employee number 5 at Cordoba, and you were able to grow all the way across. Amazing career path. And as Cordoba continues to expand, can you talk a little bit from a private sector perspective in terms of the importance of workforce development, you know, in terms of what the needs are from a private corporation so that civic serving organizations, education institutions can develop better programs to match the needs of the private sector?
Sure, thank you. And thank you to BizFed for hosting this and inviting me back. I participated in a water forum a couple of years ago and appreciate the nod to get invited back to be here today. I want to point out that Cordoba is a family-owned, privately held company, to your point about small business. We compete against very large conglomerate worldwide companies. Many are publicly traded companies. And the difference between a community-based, family-owned business versus a publicly traded company, among other things, is we don't have stockholders and dividend calls that we need to adhere to that drive our every decision. And that's unique to a local business. And whatever type of public policy we can do to continue to support local business, the better for everyone. One good example of this is we're active in the municipal market space in 4 different areas, all public infrastructure. Our work is fairly technical: civil engineering, architectural services. And for the longest time, we had thought that in order to compete against these big brand names, we had to recruit the brightest kids from the best institutions. And we were really hung up on Ivy League for a long time. And what we realized is that everybody in the industry was hung up on Ivy League at that time, and we had to learn the workforce better that we needed to target. And one of the areas I want to target or talk about today is we then made it a point to reach out to various universities and better understand their engineering programs, become mentors, participate, help shape curriculum, and ultimately recruit. And that was a great way for us to expand our workforce and bring in opportunities. It started with Stanford University, the Graduate School of Civil and Environmental Engineering. And we have formal relationships with UCLA Luskin School of Public Policy, USC School of Engineering, and a few others. And what we learned along the way is each engineering school has a different personality, if you will, that the type of qualified candidates that they provide are different from school to school. For example, Stanford University, maybe because it's a graduate school and the students tend to have work experience before going to graduate school, really emphasized on providing leaders and folks that were ready to step in a leadership role. But we didn't need that all the time. And what we found, what we needed was folks that understood, that were solid in things like math and understood production. And we found that at Cal State Fullerton, Cal Poly Pomona, and UC Merced in particular. And we've had great success with our outreach to universities and in particular there. And that has really worked for our benefit, and the investment of time and money we did to expand our view really paid off.
This next question actually goes to all of you, and please feel free to jump in. I think all of you in some way talked about partnerships. Cynthia particularly mentioned private partnership with Intuit. Can you give other examples, success stories of partnerships, and so that the audience understands, how did you come up with these partnerships? Where did they come from? So how do we replicate those processes of successful partnerships? So please feel free to jump in, anybody.
Sure. I mean, we have lots of different partnerships, and one that comes to mind, because there's a gentleman sitting in front of me that runs the program, our technical management program, but we've been doing that for 70 years now. But Boeing Corporation is a great example. So Boeing and the aerospace industry, for many decades now, we've partnered with them, and it's a great example of where they came to us and said, we have a really particular need, and we need to train our engineers to become better managers. And so we worked with them over the last 70 years as a strategic partner to make sure that the curriculum, again, is updated to their standard. And there's lots of other folks, Northrop Grumman and others that are based in Los Angeles. But that's just one example of many that we have here where, again, it's so important for us because the difference for us is that we don't want to assume that because we're at a public research university that we know better than industry and our partners, that we still need to have that collaboration back and forth and hearing from the workforce, the employers, what they actually need.
I'd like to say, it's really multi-didactic in its approach. You have to be able to look at all the industries. And so the Los Angeles Urban League is very proud to say that we kind of cross-pollinate. So it goes through the full continuum. So we have partnerships with Southern Cal Gas. That partnership is in our construction. And so it works with our apprenticeships. We have partnerships with the healthcare, UCLA, although I'm a Trojan. Keck hasn't come on board yet. That's all right. We're here with you, in love.
We appreciate that.
You got that. And it's a great program. Healthcare, working to train nurses aides and CNAs. We have partnerships with a backstage program that looks at the back room, again, I say the back room of film and the industry of entertainment. So it's with Paramount and CAA, and we work to get folks behind the cameras in what we call below the line positions. And then we have partnerships with Amazon, an opportunity to get kids and internships and see how we can work further with apprenticeships. So we really are very diverse in how we look at partnerships. But I'd like to state also, it's not just about the workforce development. There's a question that he hasn't asked yet, but that will be about grant funding. So we look at these partnerships kind of two-pronged. How can we bridge or build our communities through their funding, give them a win-win with their workforce, and build our communities? So it's really a triad, and that's our approach that we work. So not just merely funding, but partnerships, and then building the workforce as well. So it's, again, multi-didactic.
Fight on, Cynthia, fight on.
That's a Trojan answer, wasn't it?
Wait, it's go Bruins, I think.
I'd like to offer a perspective from the private sector. In the private sector, oftentimes we have to look in the mirror to figure out how best to prepare ourselves so that we could ask for collaboration.
Yeah.
And at Cordoba Corporation, we certainly did that. I want to acknowledge two of my colleagues that are here today. They'll be available for questions afterwards. Andra Armstrong and Erica Avina, who run a program that I'd like to highlight. Right around the year 2020, when there was the George Floyd murder and incident, there were many firms and companies and corporations that were making very glossy policy statements about standing against police brutality and embracing diversity and being there for the common man. And we listened to that. We thought, as a firm that operates in the public sector, we needed to do more than just a glossy corporate statement. And keeping in mind that we also wanted to enhance and develop our workforce as well, we decided that the best way to help everybody, including ourselves, was to give people a job, a good paying job. And let's target communities and collaborate with communities within our company, within our network, to figure out how to do that. And one of our employees, she and her husband run a church in a community. And we partnered with her and her church, she's here today, Andra, to help us develop what we call a Pathways program to identify at-risk individuals who might be in community college, not really working towards a degree or a certificate, but at least have shown that initiative. And maybe with a little bit of guidance, direction, mentoring, and a job, we could help them get there, and the there could eventually be a long-term employment with Cordoba. So we developed a program where we identified and recruited and brought on 10 people to work in our program. And the moment that they started the program, they were hired as a Cordoba employee. So they were paid a salary, and they were W-2 employees, so they were given the same benefits that I get so that it could help them make it through the training program. It was a 12-month training program with a terrific curriculum with resources identified to help coach them through. At the end of our first year, 6 successfully graduated and are employed by Cordoba. We've since had a second year of cohorts. We had 6, I believe, participate, and all 6 have graduated and are employed by Cordoba. And we're about to start our 3rd cohort. And we feel pretty good that we figured this out, that it works. We've invested our retained earnings, and we see the investment coming back. And now I think we might be at the point where we're ready to reach out to organizations, possibly like BizFed, to see if there's a way that we can scale up this organization to have a greater impact now that we know how to make it work within our firm.
So I would just add, in terms of partnerships and how is it that we develop partnerships, one of the things that helps us is that JVS SoCal operates several of the America's Job Centers of California, which is WIOA funds, and it's with the County of Los Angeles and the City of Los Angeles. And through that, we actually can offer, we have business service representatives. They go out into the community, they reach out to the businesses and employer partners to find out what they need, and we help to recruit. And we can offer free, job recruitments and job fairs and things of resources to help understand more what they want. So that's one way of kind of getting to know the different employer partners, starting to get to know who they are and what they need. And as we learn more what they need, then sometimes it comes through us. We have proprietary training programs. They work in banking, and that works in healthcare. We have a number of different healthcare-oriented programs. We also have apartment maintenance programs. But we don't limit ourselves just to the proprietary programs that we have. You know, we want to understand what the broader needs are and make those connections to the community colleges or to other training providers. And fortunately, you know, again, through grants, funding, resources, then we're able to make those connections. And that's how we try to bring it all together. It all takes time.
So thank you for setting up for the next question, which is a grant question. But before we go there, I'm going to talk about some of the topics and some of the points that you guys touched on, which ties back to the industry aspect, right? As we're looking at funding opportunities and let's be honest, funding challenges that might be coming down. You're mentioning WIOA. So for those of you who are not familiar, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, federal funding that goes through the state and goes to the local government and basically funnels down to a lot of the partners to do that work, but with some, let's say, uncertainty in terms of how funding will operate. What is the strategy that we should be taking on? What are some of the success stories, but also what are the thinking as we're moving forward in order for us to be able to secure the funding that's necessary for this region? Because look, workforce development training costs money. It's not going to be easy to do because to identify the workers, to basically match them with potential career paths, and to be able to engage with employers to develop the curriculum, it doesn't come magically. You have to basically have investing with those resources. So again, open to all. Can you jump in a little bit to talk about what are the grant success stories that you guys have seen before? What are some of the challenges and how do we attack it in the future? Cynthia?
Well, I'll start with some of the grant opportunities. We were very fortunate as when I first started. I've only been here as president for about a year. And when I looked and assessed the different types of funding, and just to your point, we know that funding can go away in a moment. And so at that moment, I approached appropriations. And so that was one way to stabilize funding. It definitely is not the end all, but it is one way to execute very quickly certain populations within the workforce development. We were able to secure about $1 million to service a population by which I always often say is underserved and forgotten, and that's foster children, and how we will help them work themselves into the workforce development and to assist them. But then looking at other ways to diversify your funding, going into private funding, going into foundations, and really talking, when we say private-public partnerships, that's truly what it has to be. Everyone must be accountable. We know moving into this administration, we're seeing cuts every day. And just 2 weeks ago, many of us were scrambling when we opened up and saw that our federal contracts could be immediately canceled. We knew what that meant. But unfortunately, I don't know if many of us were ready for the game plan, if we were all honest with each other. So this is something that we must take very seriously. We must do it collectively, and I don't think it's a placebo right now. I think it's going to look like something that we've never had to do before. So that would be my advice to this.
I think I'll just add, I mean, we have examples of grants, and I think the importance of the grants is that, to your point, they really help us serve underrepresented populations. And so since I've taken on this role, that's been one of the paramount things that we focused on, is serving more Angelinos and making sure that this public research university that's in Westwood isn't just up on a hill and not accessible to people that live and work in Los Angeles. So that's one important thing. I won't get into all the details of the grants, but something that Stephen, you did years ago that struck me as being really critically important that I think everyone in the room should probably hear, and something that LAEDC does really well, is serve as a convener. I think coming together and making sure that we're working on grant opportunities and working on advocacy and educating people in Washington, D.C., people in the state legislature, the governor. I think part of the problem with Los Angeles is that we're so large and expansive and diverse that sometimes our story gets lost. And so I really think for this audience and for everyone here, the more that we can work together, the stronger that we'll be as a community, the more that we'll actually be able to bring those grants and those funds back to Los Angeles.
But I'd also like to say something on that. The word collaboration has been used for years, and we don't do that as well in Los Angeles. We tend to cross each other out because I'm not sure why.
That's exactly right.
I'm not sure why. But if we're going to succeed in Los Angeles as the stellar city that we are, in this paradigm shift, we must all stick together. And Stephen and I have talked before in terms of what can we do, how do we bring each other together, and not just using the word collaboration, but really being about it, and not ostracizing certain groups that may be able to accentuate, because we know what the executive order said. So everybody is going to have to redevise even how we market our programs, how we talk about them, and who you actually have at the table. And lastly, it's not about just having somebody at the table because of what their origin may be or what their culture may be, but really what services can be developed and how we can all win at this game, not just monetarily. So.
I would offer to that last point, in the case of Cordoba, this has all been self-funded. And third year going on the fourth year, it's several hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've invested in this. And we found that by creating 15, going on 20 employees, those are employees that we did not have to pay headhunter fees for. So after a while, there's it makes economic sense. And the better we can capture that so that private business can come to the table, because at the end of the day, these employees are going to be hired by private business. They will benefit from that. So the more we could think through how to reimagine the program, the better, especially based on facts.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything that all of you have said in terms of it's definitely a business decision. You know, the partnership that we have with RadNet is a business decision. The fact that it's an earn and learn is because they need to fill that pipeline. Every time that their machines aren't working, that's costing them money every day. So it's important for them to find a partner to go and do that, fill that skill set. In terms of like funding model, I agree with what everyone said. For us, I would say, you know, government funding tends to be sort of a little bit of a foundational thing. You know that you're going to get 2 to 3 year grants out of that. They tend to be a little longer term. So it's worth trying to get into that space, kind of starting at the county, kind of going from the city, and then, you know, it's tougher getting into the federal government, which right now maybe isn't even all that great, given what we're dealing with. But I would say then the other place, there's like 2 other areas that I really think about. Our employer partners, usually they actually help pay into the program. So the different industries that we're targeting, those employer partners are part of our roundtable. They also pay into the program. And then our private funders, like you were saying, foundations and things of that nature. When we're starting new programs, innovation, that's it. I mean, we've been very fortunate and lucky, you know, $500,000 grants, $1 million grants to start new programs. It takes that much to get things going. So.
A lot of great thoughts there. I want to summarize a little bit so that we can take away some action, right? What I'm hearing is that, one, we have to really look at different sources of funding. We can't just rely on one single source, so diversify your funding. But in order for you to diversify funding, whether it's with private partners, whether it's with governmental partners or philanthropy, you really need to establish those relationships. And in terms of establishing those relationships, another thing that Cynthia, I want to go back to in terms of that collaborative aspect is that we need to come together. And Eric, you're absolutely right. Sometimes when we are competing for grants, we cancel each other out. You have, you know, Pomona applying for a grant against Pacoima, against Pasadena, against, where are the other piece? Give me the Palisades and the Palos Verdes, right? And eventually people around outside of this region, they don't know the difference. It's LA. So how do we come together to do that? And that collaborative effort is going to take time. This actually sets up for the next kind of conversation. I was expecting Blaine to come get me, but actually I had the big boss come get me. So Kevin told me it's time to go. So with that said, I do want to say that a lot of things that you guys mentioned actually ties in with something that Kevin was mentioning earlier, which is the California Jobs First process that the governor's office, and later on you'll hear from Derek as well, in terms of that investment from the state of California, allowing a lot of the folks here I see are from the CJF process. So thank you all for your leadership there. I see Hapin, I see Stella, I see Sharon, and especially Maria, who was a partner, California Community Foundation at LAEDC, been working together to really support this coalition that's now 700-800 partners combined together. This is the first time in a long time that Los Angeles has the ability, through investment from the governor's office in the state, to allow us to start working through these very vast geographic region and diverse representation, right? We have 140 nationalities represented here. We speak 224 languages. We have 80 different cities, over 100 incorporated regions. So a lot of folks outside, it's like, why can't you guys be like more like Missoula and come up with one single grant? We have 10 million people. It's not gonna be the same. So it's gonna take some 9.5 in the future. Let's hope we can correct that. So with that said, we really need to work collaboratively together so that we can join forces, so that we can compete for funding, not only just tapping into the local resources, but state and nationally, because we've seen with the wildfires, the attention that we're able to draw from national and international approach. The question is basically, how do we take this opportunity to work together? So with that, for those of you who have joined my panels before, the hard-hitting question is gonna come now. I'm gonna save you for last, Eric, for this, because it's a hard-hitting question. What do you love about UCLA the most? So, for those Trojan fans as well, I'm not gonna. What do you like? Let's spread it out. Not just UCLA. We'll take out the UC part. As we're moving forward in terms of folks looking at wildfire and looking at recovery, a lot of folks are actually confused because they get the advertising. They're like, oh my God, LA's on fire. We can't come here because all of LA has burnt. So we need to start telling the story that LA is open for business, that this diverse community that's coming together is so powerful that you guys need to continue to work with us. So if you're telling our international audience or national audience why they should bet on LA, what are the things that you would like to say to our audience?
I would say that we've got the best beaches, we've got the best weather, and amazing international food. You got to get here.
Yeah.
I would say we have Olympics and Paralympics and Super Bowls and All-Star games all coming here in the next few years, and we have to get it together, and we will.
I would say that we're resilient, we're strong, we will rebuild better than ever, and we will restore, and that's Los Angeles, and we are the baddest in the country.
I kind of want to go back to the UCLA.
I was going to say, you should
No, but in seriousness, for LA, I think we have some of the most amazing museums and entertainment venues in the world. I think that we're the innovation capital of the world, in my view, and we have so much amazing things going on. For UCLA, though, it's our amazing alumni. I mean, look at them and all the stuff they're doing, like Steven. So anyway, no, seriously, it's LA is such an amazing place, and even though this is not my home through birth, I'm not a native Angelino. It's a place that I always tell everyone, there's no other place like it on earth, and I've traveled to more than 50 countries in my career and life, and I just think it's such an amazing place, a special place, and it represents all of the greatness of the United States. So come join us.
Thank you. I hope the audience have learned what we're working on with, in terms of workforce development and what we need to do in the future. We really need to unite together, so thank you. Please help me thank the panel. And thank you, Kevin and BizFed Institute, for having us. 11:15, I caught us up. Thank you.
Now that was just awesome, folks. Thank you all, because we covered a lot of the key areas that we're going to be focusing on. Our work with California Jobs First has been exhausting. And, we talked about aerospace, transportation/goods movement, healthcare, life science, motion picture, construction, the need for collaboration. You hear that, Derek? Collaboration. And the funding programs. So great panel, folks. I really appreciate you. And also, did I say motion picture? Motion pictures. So next, I want to bring up our founding CEO of BizFed and BizFed Institute, Tracy Hernandez, who hired me about 8 years ago and then gave me the nod for this position about 5.5 years ago. Want to thank you for allowing me and you and I to join hands in showing people that doing good is good business and it's profitable. All right? Tracy, it's all yours. Right.
we share everything in life. We're like, joined at the hip, brother and sister here. It was the best decision I made. Was it 8 years ago already?
8 years.
Seems like a second ago. We've gotten a lot done in this period of time. So it's good to see everyone. Welcome to our second annual workforce readiness, preparedness, tackling development to make our communities better. I get the exciting privilege to, first off, thank our world-class moderator, Stephen Cheung. Where's Stephen? I mean, world-class. You're the best. And then, of course, we had our Oscar-winning panelists. We don't just recruit, the bottom. We go right for the top. So Eric, Cynthia, Randall, Kim, you guys really dynamite. You rolled in prepared and gave us something really to chew on that we could take away. Thank you so much. So Kevin gives me the good jobs, which I appreciate. So like Randall said, he got asked, spoke at one panel, and then he passed the test. There's a grading system. Do we invite you back or not? Did you get an A, B, C, or D? So he got the A check marks, got invited back to the second panel. My goal is to be invited to every panel and get a role. But with Kevin, it's not a given. Like, I got to earn it every time. So I get to introduce our keynote speaker today. And you guys showed up today, I'm sure, to hear him. Our speaker is Kirk. And Kirk is a very brave soul. I'm going to give him that. He serves as the senior advisor on economic policy at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. And in this role, that's not for the faint of heart, folks. I'm sure take that in. He's going to tell you a little bit more. But he leads the work of the Governor's California Jobs First Initiative, which you heard Stephen, the panel, Kevin talk about, collaborating across 9 agencies in our state. 9 different agencies. California, we don't make anything simple, but when we tackle it, we're the best in the world. So he's got 9 agencies to bring together, promote economic growth, job creation, build an industrial strategy for, of course, our world's 5th largest economy, almost $4 trillion, California. It is just, it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're bigger than most, literally all but 4 countries in the world, just California. And so the other thing he took on in this Jobs First initiative is he actually is rolling in here leading one of the largest workforce development project ever. It's about $600 million budget to implement across the state, and many of you are involved in. And so he's always in the hot seat, as you might imagine. When you have that much power, that much instruction, that much funding, and the goals that are to surpass what we've been able to do before, he doesn't put his head in the sand. He doesn't shy away. He always shows up, just like he is here. So that's what I'm super grateful about Kirk, is he makes himself available, and he'll talk to us, to each of you offline, about getting things done. So just a quick reminder, since 2020, including, he's been with the state of California for that time. So what is that, 5 years? Yeah, we're at 2025, right? Okay. So in that short period of time, though, you can see the work that he's already leading. But prior to joining the Newsom administration, Derek lived and worked, and I love this because he's a true Californian. So lived and worked in the San Joaquin Valley, Tulare County in particular, the southern border in California, Orange County, the Central Coast. And so that is quite a diverse range of California that gives him that lived experience, that first person in his tiny few years being on this earth. So I really appreciate all that he does to support our local and regional communities, business leaders, government agencies, and our economic development efforts. He currently lives in the mighty town of Sacramento, the seat of the heat in California, making it work, and he flew down today to be with us, Kirk.
It's a privilege to be with you. Thank you so much for the introduction. I am a very proud Californian. This is my home. My parents now live in Missoula, believe it or not, and it's cool. It's not California. I remind my dad almost every day that he's missing out on all that California has to offer now. But have lived and worked up and down this state. I have never lived and worked within the borders of Los Angeles, so forgive me for that. However, my claim to fame in LA is that my wife grew up in Burbank, and we are here often visiting our family, and love this community and this county, and our hearts have been with you over the last several months as you all have braced this incredible disaster, unlike any that we really have ever seen. So I want to start today, though. I'm a context person. I like for you to know who I am, just as I wish that I could have an independent conversation with each of you in this moment. And again, I'm happy to offline. I grew up in the central San Joaquin Valley. I grew up in Tulare County, in a small city, the city of Porterville, at the base of the foothills and the Sequoia National Forest. I spent high school living in a home that was in an orange grove, right? Like, I am the valley is me in every circumstance imaginable. And I don't know if it's like this in LA, but in the valley, when you get ready to go to high school, there's a lot of competition between which high school you're gonna pick and where you're gonna go. And when I was 13, I was faced with this daunting task of picking between high schools, one of which my mom had gone to and the other of which my dad had gone to. And these are rival high schools in my hometown of Porterville, California. And you know, as a 13-year-old filled with a vast amount of anxiety of disappointing one of his parents or the other, I jumped at the opportunity when the local school district made a decision to create a new high school and to really focus in and build this new magnet academy that was foundationally built on this idea of work-based learning. I am not a traditional classroom student. I hope I get an A today and get invited back. I did not get A's in primary school and high school. And so this idea of going to a school that was gonna connect everything that I was learning with work opportunities in local businesses in the city of Porterville was super fascinating to me. One of the things that they required before you were allowed to graduate was that you had to do an internship in a local company. It was, you do an internship and graduate, or you don't do an internship and you don't graduate, right? It was a mandate in this space. A rather difficult task in a town of 65,000 people to send a couple of hundred kids into an internship into companies that had never done this before. So my internship was working with the local Chamber of Commerce, and I was tasked with actually going and knocking on other companies' doors and asking them to bring my peers into their businesses. I was tasked with going to the networking events and going to city council meetings and participating in the business community and saying, we need you to offer additional opportunities for my peers. Because just as you all in the business community need workers and want workers to fill these jobs, we need to build this partnership. We need to build this connection like we haven't had before. That internship was supposed to be 120 hours. 4 years later, I finally left the chamber doing this work. I was so committed to it and remain committed to it. And that experience really has informed the work that I do in my professional career, and quite frankly is the reason with which I was so excited to join the Newsom administration in 2020, because the governor is just as committed to this idea of bridging the gaps and facilitating community and connecting businesses and workers and government and communities in new ways. So that's a little bit about me. I also have a 2-year-old, and so the idea of prepping him for what he wants to be one day, I probably am that dad that asks too much my 2-year-old what he wants to be, and I'm like, wait, today he's cooking, maybe he's gonna be a chef, and now he's really likes rocks, maybe he'll be a geologist, who knows where we will go, but super focused on this space and really appreciate your commitment to this conversation and to engaging in this work with us. So in 2021, the governor signed a piece of legislation that established a $600 million fund known at the time as the Community Economic Resilience Fund. He later asked us to rename the program because who the heck knows what SURF means, and how do we think about connecting it into communities in a different way. And through this process, we created this work known as California Jobs First. And for us, the North Star of this, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, this effort is about supporting the creation of, attraction of, and access to good paying jobs for everyday Californians. We have a responsibility to do that. So we established this $600 million fund, which has been the most exhausting and hardest thing that many of you have been a part of, and that's just the reality of doing collaboration and trying to do things differently. At that same time, not as well known, but equally as important, the governor also, in partnership with the legislature, invested a few $100 million into what was known as the K-16 Education Collaborative Program, a program that required regions, the same regions, through our Jobs First work, to come together at the K-16 level and start to think about the ways in which we design curriculum against the skills needs of employers. And how do we do this in a new way? How do we connect folks in new ways? And how do we bridge the gaps? It's sometimes a little bit embarrassing to say that the state of California has never really paid attention to these elements before, right? Like I like to tell people or remind folks that then in 1980, then President Reagan said the 9 worst words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And I never imagined myself as a government employee, but literally I have no other words but then to say, like, I'm from the government, what can I do for you? How can we break the systems? How can we partner together? How can we build opportunities to create, attract, and support access to good paying jobs for everyday Californians as best as we can? And so through this work, we are trying at the state level to build these new systems and connect the dots in new ways, not to come back at you and say, this is how to do it, but to learn from you, right? The work that you all are doing here today is so critical to the work that we will do at the state level, that your regional colleagues within Los Angeles County, outside of Los Angeles County, in Shasta County, everywhere in California, will do. We need to learn from each other. We need to bridge the gaps, we need to identify the opportunities, and we need to think creatively about the solutions to again, that primary North Star of job creation and job access, and the ability for people to connect, to support their families, to thrive, to build wealth, and to have real opportunity in the community with which they want. This work is hard. Whether or not you've participated in the California Jobs First process or you are doing this incredible work, as we learned about on the previous panel, this work is daunting and it is hard. And there are days with which we want to say, no more. For those employer partners in the room, you in particular, I think have an incredibly hard task of trying to figure out how to actively participate in these conversations and also run a company. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your commitment to this conversation, your commitment to this work, and we want to work collaboratively together with you to figure that out. And so as we imagine what some of the next steps are in the 23 months left that we have in the Newsom administration, my goal is to institutionalize and formalize as much of these partnerships as we possibly can, so that when the next governor comes in, whomever she or he is, they say, this is just the way we do economic business and workforce development in the state of California. We do it in partnership with community. We do it in partnership with employers. We do it in partnership with workers. We do it in partnership with intermediaries. And so we're collaborating together. We've identified our strategic sectors. We know where LA's focus is through this Jobs First process. The next step for us is partnering with all of you to start to learn the best practices that all of you through Grid Alternatives and JVS and the Urban League and others have built on, to start doing some skills mapping with our partners at the Workforce Development Board at the state level and at the regional and local level, and imagining the ways that we can collaborate together to start to design real investments and pathways and education and training opportunities with all of you for everyday Californians. It is one of those philosophical conversations that at the state level, it's so easy to go off on the policy tangents of what we could do and how we could do it. And what I want you all to know is that while you are here today for the second year in a row having this conversation about workforce development, I want to end with thank you. Thank you for your commitment to this conversation. And I want you to know that there are people in the mighty place of Sacramento in our ivory towers that have your back, that want to learn from you, that want to partner with you, that want to ideate and implement policies and programs that are going to have that are going to make a difference for your neighbors, because they're our neighbors too. We're Californians, and we owe it to ourselves to collaborate and to do this together. So thank you for your commitment. We look forward to continuing the partnership over the next 23 months and navigating together how we can institutionalize and formalize this work so that, again, it's just deeply embedded in what we do as Californians. Thank you.
That was awesome. You know, Tracy will tell you I'm intentional and I'm strategic. Derek's organization is going to be on the decision-making committee. I'm going to put you out there, Derek. You got to stay around. There's a big grant opportunity called the Implementation Project, and his organization is going to be making decisions and analyzing the proposals and the applications on that. Multi-million-dollar. And it's not about equal decision. The proposals will be evaluated based on merit. So all of you folks that are in here, pay attention. This is an opportunity. We talked about funding. It was right in front of you. Next thing I'd like to, just real quick, all the members of the California Jobs First effort, I want you to stand up so you guys see who's in the room. Stand up. Be recognized. Come on. These folks have been in it. They've been in it with me we've been in it for 3 years, coming up in April, 3 years. And we're now getting to action. Huh, Jermaine? Jermaine's VP of Workforce Development and Strategic Initiatives for LAEDC. So a lot of folks, you know, Kelly here that I'm getting ready to introduce, you know, Sharon and Stella and all the other folks, Hey Penn, all the other folks in here, right? If I missed anyone, my apologies. I'm looking. But anyway, this is the time. So when this is over, we're going to move to the breakout sessions. You can't leave, because if you've had questions, all these panelists are going to stay around. They're going to get those questions answered. And we need to do it crisply, okay? Because we don't get Sacramento to come down very often. You guys have proven that there is no stereotype when it comes to LA. We collaborate, we work together. As my adult offspring say, we stand on business, okay? All right. So thank you again, Derek, for joining us today and sharing all the great work at GoBiz. Next, I'd like to introduce our featured speaker of the day, Kelly LoBianco. Kelly and I served as steering committee members. I was the inaugural chair of the steering committee. And she's the first of LA County Department of Economic Opportunity. That's a tough job. And she's already done some great things and doing great things and will do great things. She has, in the past, she has done a lot of work around economic development, and this Central Economic and Workforce Development Agency of LA County, which she is the director, they are all over the place in terms of showing up and making a difference, and here she is here front and center. You know, people could be doing other things. She's here to talk to you. And, you know, at the end of the day, her department seeks to unlock the vast potential of our local workers and small businesses. She wants to drive new, competitive investment that creates quality jobs, not just jobs. And a lot of these thriving careers are going to evolve into business owners. Keep that in mind. So she wants to make sure that we have competitive investment in career pathways and diverse talent pipelines that support economic security and mobility for all our residents, and collectively build an equitable economy poised for inclusive and sustainable growth. Kelly was appointed director in July of 2022, and she has joined the county in 2021 to support the department's establishment. So please give a rounding Applause to Kelly Lobianco.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. Kevin has been doing an amazing job at BizFed Institute, but also very much appreciate your work for California Jobs First. As you just heard, I'm Kelly Lobianco, Director of the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity. So glad to see so many friendly faces in the room. You know, unlike Derek, I knew I wanted to do workforce development from when I was 2 years old. Just kidding. Nobody really knew what that was. But I always did know I wanted to work for my community, and I knew I wanted to work in the public sector actually from pretty young. I was a failed candidate for many student government elections, but got very much into what it means to actually serve our communities. And so, you know, as Kevin said, I've worked in different capacities in government at the local, state, and federal level, and couldn't be more overjoyed to be the first director of the LA County Department of Economic Opportunity, which launched just about 2.5 years ago. It's an interesting time, 2025. I'm glad to see you all here, weathering what has been a devastating past 6 weeks. And so really, really happy to see you all here. My heart is with you and your communities, because I know either you or those that you know closely are impacted. And that's going to be the case for a long time, and we're here for you. The department started in a different crisis. We launched as we were recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Board of Supervisors who created us knew that they needed to build back, and they needed to build back better. And we didn't have a central economic development agency at that time within the county government. And so they took the leap. They centralized economic and workforce development under one roof into this brand new department. And we've been rolling ever since. So when it comes to workforce development, we always have known that job seekers, our workers, are one of our primary customers. We're here to serve workers. We're here to serve small businesses and major industries and our communities. And as Kevin said, to drive inclusive and sustainable growth in the region. That's our call to action by the Board of Supervisors. That's why I wake up every morning with my hardworking team of 200. Shout out to Asitra right here in the back. And we're here to really inspire a thriving community for everybody. And so in COVID, we were grateful for taking part in what was a $2 billion investment by the federal government at that time in the recovery of LA County. Our department was responsible for $161 or so million of that. So right off the bat, we worked with many folks in this room to launch our Safer at Work campaign to ensure that our businesses and their workforce had access to the latest public health information and PPE and COVID test kits. We supported thousands of folks through our American Job Centers of California in connecting to rapid reemployment, to paid training and transitional work while they got back on their feet. We launched high road training partnerships, which are industry-informed and worker-informed training programs, whether it's in the creative economy or aerospace and healthcare, to ensure that we are building a pipeline of qualified talent for our major industries here in the region so that they can continue reinvesting. We also are, as Kevin mentioned, supporting our small business community, our entrepreneurs and our small businesses. We're still launching entrepreneurship academies with many folks in this room too, driving training and technical assistance and getting capital out there. We just launched a $10 million commercial acquisition fund that supported nonprofits in purchasing vacant property here in LA County. That's going to go to community serving business, ensuring that we have anti-displacement as development happens, and that our local small businesses have a place to continue to serve. So there's been a lot of activity with COVID-19, and that sort of kicked us off, and seeing how we can leverage these federal dollars to drive the mission and vision of the department. We also went through a process that's we're still going through actually, which is to modernize our public workforce system. Our department runs the LA County Workforce Development Board and 18 America's Job Centers of California. And we support hundreds of thousands of workers throughout the region, thousands of businesses as well as they look for hiring and training support to meet their workforce needs. And we've got a different way of doing business on our mind, whether it's making sure that we're creating local measures of success, that we are incentivizing quality jobs, that we're focused on our priority populations and our high growth sectors. We know that we need to do things a little bit differently to make sure that we meet the needs of 2025. All right, got my 2-minute warning. All right, but we'll talk about the last 6 weeks too. We know that right now we are in sort of fire and windstorm response, and we have a long recovery ahead. And in that recovery, we know that we're going to need to support a qualified workforce and to support our dislocated workers. We know that we have tens of thousands of displaced families right now. A couple of things that I just want folks to know about our department is, one, you can come to us for information. We've got teams at the disaster recovery centers every single day and have been since January, helping workers and businesses figure out their next steps, whether it's the structural loss they faced or revenue loss. We also know that displaced businesses may need to find new spaces to do their business. So we launched a free platform called Business to Business Space Share, B2B Space Share.lacounty.gov. We'll share it out later. But essentially it's a Craigslist. So if you've got space to donate, you can include it on this site. And if you are a displaced business or nonprofit, you can search listings, and we serve as a matchmaker in the short term. And we also know capital is important right now, so we have launched the LA Region Small Business and Worker Relief Funds. Those are with applications open now. If you go to laregionfund.lacounty.gov, we'll share again all this information out. But workers who have been impacted, either their employment or income, may be eligible for $2,000 grants, cash grants right now. Small businesses and nonprofits that have faced loss in the fire zones and in the evac order and warning zones may be eligible for a $2,000 to a $25,000 cash grant. We're also supporting folks in getting their SBA disaster loans, connecting to unemployment insurance and disaster unemployment insurance, and their FEMA disaster assistance, all with due dates coming up March 10th. But folks don't have to do it alone. They can do it with our public workforce system and our LA City and LA County Business Source, Work Source Centers, America's Job Centers, and our Office of Small Business. So we encourage folks to stay tuned. And so in addition to that, I hope you stay in touch with the Department of Economic Opportunity, because we're here to think not only about our response and recovery because of disasters, but we have a lot of other investments coming to the region, whether it's LA 28, whether it's the infrastructure dollars coming in. And we want to make sure that we are inspiring that inclusive and sustainable growth in the region, and that we're here to meet all of your needs. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you for giving her a great applause. Next, folks, before we go further, it's really important, again, that you engage in this next process. We haven't let you ask questions for a reason, because we wanted to keep you here. And if you stay through this process, there's going to be a nice lunch waiting for you, okay? All right, is that incentive? Okay, so what we're going to do next is all the panelists, I want you to stay here with me, and we're going to go into breakout sessions. See, this isn't just about people talking at you and leaving. We want to make this experiential. One of my board members, stand up, Ruth Dreisendos. This is her idea. And she's the president and CEO of DDCC Communications, someone you might want to do business with. But I want to point out that we're going to have a business breakout session. Maria, stand up. All right. And Blaine is going to direct Maria. Community-based, Luis Portillo, stand up. Dr. Jennifer Zalette, the president of AV College, out where I live. By the way, she is the aerospace manufacturing educational queen of the AV. And you definitely want to talk to her because she's going to talk about education. Also, workforce development, Shamika Dixon. Shamika. Financial, we're going to have Quentin Strode of VSEDC. He's the CEO and president. Quentin, stand up so people can see you. He's going to lead that breakout session. Expert in private funding, public funding. You got to get in there. There's money out there, all right? And Maria Garcia, California Community Foundation. To be clear, when I say you got to stay, we just qualified for a $100,000 grant. Due to Maria, okay? You folks need to stick around and go to these breakout sessions. There's opportunity, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and break now, and then when you come back, we're gonna have one of our favorite managers at BizFed Institute and BizFed. Yes, and she's a little shy, but she's not shy for real. Alicia Rivers, stand up. When you come back, right before lunch, she's going to give you a quick presentation on our Advocacy Academy. And this is how it makes it easy for you to learn how, aside from what you've heard today, learn how to educate your employees and educate yourselves on workforce development and how it's being done. She won us $1 million grant last summer, that young lady right there, okay? Do I have your attention? Do I have your attention? All right, so let's get to these breakout sessions. The facilitators are gonna take notes. They're gonna bring those notes back. We're gonna include them in our key takeaways, and then when we have our next forum in October, we're gonna measure our success qualitatively and quantitatively. We're gonna get people hired, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and break up. Let's be crisp, let's move to it.
If you don't go to your breakout session, you won't get lunch.
So let me first wrap this all up by asking you all this. How many incredible ideas, businesses, and innovations have we lost because people didn't have access to the right information, the right resources, or the right connections? That's really the theme of today. Talent is everywhere, but access is not. And that's exactly why the BizFed Advocacy Academy exists, to remove the barriers standing in the way of success for small business owners, entrepreneurs, and job seekers. So the reality is, the work that we're doing here today actually matters now more than ever. A lot of you, I'm sure, already know that small businesses and entrepreneurs have literally been the lifeblood of communities since the Industrial Revolution. There are actually studies out there that show if you can correlate the success of the community based on the success of the businesses within that community. We all know that. We understand tax and how that works. I don't have to break that down. I'm sure you believe me, but you can look it up. But we also know that most small business owners don't have the complete toolkit. It's never just access to capital or networking or mentorship or resources or education. It's all of the above. And we also know that so many don't know how to access capital, secure contracts, and navigate the government resources that are available. And we also know that in California, policies are made every day that affect the way we do business. But too often, way too often, I work for BizFed, so trust me, I know, the people that should be in the room to help on and decide on these policy decisions are not there. And if we don't equip our workforce with both the skills and advocacy tools they need, then we are completely failing them. We've all seen talented, hardworking people struggle, not because they lack the drive, but because they lack the roadmap. And we have the power in this room to change that. The solution is what the BizFed Advocacy Academy does. We bridge the gap between business and government. We don't just train the businesses, we empower them to advocate, network, and actually win opportunities. We turn information into action. This isn't just another training. We teach how to secure funding, get certified, and strategically engage in policy. This is actually how you build a more inclusive economy. Advocacy shouldn't be a privilege. We are here ensuring that everyone from startups to legacy businesses can access the opportunities that they deserve. It's millions of dollars out here that we're leaving on the table. So here's your call to action. The success of this program depends on all the leaders in this room, especially GoBiz, because you guys have all the money. We need your help in supporting this program. We need you to invest in this program. We need you all to engage your networks. We need you to sign up and be a mentor. If we're going to build a mentorship network, we need you to be a part of it so that you're lending your expertise to help grow the next level of workforce. And we, of course, need you to help us secure more resources. More funding means more impact, and more impact means a stronger workforce. If we truly believe in an economy that works for everyone, then we have to build the infrastructure to support it. And guess what? The Advocacy Academy is that infrastructure. So here is this. This is where I'm going to leave you. The most powerful thing we can do in workforce development isn't just teach the skills. It's to create access. Access to knowledge, access to opportunities, and access to decision-making spaces. If we do that, we don't just help businesses, we can actually change entire communities. So let's stop just talking about removing the barriers and actually remove them. That means we have to take action. Let's stop saying we support small businesses and actually invest in them. The Advocacy Academy is ready to do the work, and I'll find out by how many of you contact me if you are too. Thank you.